That's fine. So, welcome to another episode for the School of Noble Thoughts show. And today we have as the guest Zehirr Saifeddine, an extraordinary, energetic human being, a good friend, and a constant source of inspiration from across the Atlantic in Calgary, Canada. Z is a successful residential real estate expert with over 25 years in the industry, and she's a creative writer, a poet, spiritual enhancer, and a real-time on-ground humanitarian. I've been following her creative, heart-touching poems and excerpts writing for years now, and every time I read a piece of her creativity, is always creates an everlasting impact on my thinking. So, not withholding any more, please welcome Zehirr Saifeddine. Hi, Zehirr. Welcome to the School of Noble Thoughts show, and thank you for accepting my invitation. How are you today?
Good, Darpan, and thank you for your patience with me and your accommodating my schedule. You've been nothing but gracious, and I'm really honored. I'm very honored with your introduction. Thank you.
No, honor is all mine, Z. Thank you for coming up. And I know you're a busy entrepreneur woman, and with all your family commitments and everything, what's happening all around life, family is getting large, so commitments are getting large, and I fully appreciate your time. So start with Z. I would like to ask you, please tell us more about your basic education, family, schooling. How did it and where did it start?
You know, education and schooling, I always did okay in school. I was always artistically inclined, naturally artistically inclined, but I always felt like anything that came really easy, unfortunately, I didn't take it seriously. And as you get older, you realize that those things that come easiest to you would have been the easiest path for your life career.
True.
So, you know, in junior high, in elementary school, junior high school more so, I like to draw and I like to sketch. Writing only came later when I was done even secondary school. But like I said, I never took it seriously. So, you know, I finished high school, went to university, did an undergraduate degree in religious studies, political science, because I felt like when you understand that about people, you understand people at their core and what drives them and what's important to them. Because
Absolutely.
I think we function based on our value system.
True. And where were you born? Tell us about your family background a little bit.
My family is, my mother was born in Canada. My father emigrated to Canada, I want to say in the 1950s. And I was born in a small French fishing village in Nova Scotia on Cape Breton Island. So a very strange combination.
And you are
Lebanese, my family's like my background. Sorry, I totally forgot.
you're the second generation Lebanese.
Yes, second generation. My dad's side, my mom was born here, so would that make me second generation on her side and first generation on dad's side?
Got it. So you're Lebanese Canadian, born in Nova Scotia, and then when did you migrate to Calgary?
In 1977, my father came up to visit some family, and he phoned my mother literally and said, "I love this city. I think we're going to move here." And sorry, that was in 1976. Later on in the year in 1976, he takes mom out, shows her the city, buys 2 houses, and the next year he left all his businesses. He was very well established in Nova Scotia, left all his businesses with his brothers.
What was he doing? What was your father doing?
My father was an entrepreneur, or is an entrepreneur. He had like commercial land, and he'd opened businesses in the properties that he owned.
Okay.
Nova Scotia. Yeah, he owned several businesses, a lot of them clothing and furniture and whatnot. But he'd like to buy, like he'd own the property and then open the businesses in them.
Got it. And you were born in Nova Scotia yourself?
Excuse me, my apologies. I have to shut this ringer off. I'm so embarrassed.
No, no problem.
Yes, in Nova Scotia, and all my siblings were born in Nova Scotia as well.
But yes, okay. And this entrepreneurship your father had, so basically, was that the passion which came into you from your father's side? Would you attribute it towards him?
I'm the eldest of 5 sisters and a brother.
Okay.
And I was very close to my father. And I always take it as a compliment when, his brothers say to me, oh, you're the most like your dad.
Yeah.
I take it as a compliment because when my father came to Canada,
Yeah.
my grandfather was already here. And in rural Nova Scotia.
How old was he when your father came here?
He was 17.
Oh, he was 17. Okay.
He was like literally you think of most 17-year-olds and
Yeah, teenager, yeah.
a baby, like for all intents and purposes. And in Nova Scotia, the earliest Lebanese families that came were mostly entrepreneurs. They opened businesses.
Yeah.
And his father had come ahead of him.
Right.
This is a story, I'll make it brief, I'd like to share with you because this was really inspirational and it really makes me pull up my socks when I'm feeling like, oh, it's a bad day. And, work is work. We all have good days and bad days.
Right.
And when the early immigrants came to Nova Scotia, or at least my mom's side and my father's side,
Yeah.
they would open businesses. But Nova Scotia is very rural. So there's all these small towns. So if they were in a busier town, a higher populated town,
Yeah.
take goods in trucks, like, I don't know what they would call them in the UK, but like half-ton trucks, and they would build a box like a camper on the back.
Yeah,
And
lorries.
Yes, and they would fill them with goods and go to these rural areas. And of
Right.
course, the people in the rural areas got to know you and they look forward to you bringing them what they needed.
Yeah.
So when my father first came, now remember, this is a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Sophisticated in what we would think is sophistication today. Couldn't speak English. And in 1997, we went back on a road trip, my husband and I and the kids. Dad had business and he waited for us because my husband wanted to see where I was, where was this place that I was born.
Right.
And he was asking my father, like, what brought you here of all the places you could go in the world? And my father said, wherever you're going to make your rizik or your fortune, that's where God puts you.
True.
And, at 17, he had seen that everybody has these trucks and they go and they have their customers and they take what they need to their customers. So he said to my grandfather, can I buy a truck? And my grandfather.
What was your grandfather? What did he do?
Same thing, new immigrant, small business.
So he was, and your grandfather was also like doing some sort of opportunities and like
Yes.
for him. He wasn't working. He wasn't working for anybody.
No.
Doing his own thing.
Yes. So he said, I asked my father, can I get a truck? And my grandfather said to him, can you afford a truck? At 17 years old, 18 years old, couldn't afford a truck. So he said to my husband, my father said to my husband said, well, what did you do? He said, I walked. He said, I filled suitcases, if you can believe this, with goods, and I walked he says, what do you mean you walked? He said, I walked. I carried these suitcases and I would walk to these towns. And he said, people were really good to me. They'd give me a place to sleep at night. Can you imagine?
How far were these towns? Like, how long did he travel? Walk.
In a vehicle, maybe a half an hour to an hour.
And he walked.
Depending on how, which towns he went to.
near to Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Yes, and he had the best memories of those times. And he said, people were really good to me. But he told, can you imagine going door to door with goods? Number one, not having a vehicle. Number two, not being able to speak the language. Yeah. And one day he went to a house, and I don't know what had happened, but some days things just get to us. And he was, for all intents and purposes, he was a child. Right. And I sat down at this family's table. They welcomed me in to have supper with them. And I started to cry.
He started crying.
He said, I just sat there and started to sob. And, they didn't know what to do with this young man. He couldn't communicate to them in English well enough to explain to him what the problem was. So they looked at his identification. They called my mother's family kind of were helping them out, like in terms of a place to stay and stuff. And, they explained to, he's new here. Thank you so much for being kind to him, whatever. Yeah. And the point is, how many of us would have given up before we even started?
So that was, and how old were you at that time? You weren't even born that time. You weren't even born that time, right?
I weren't even born. I wasn't even born.
Yeah, so for you, it was a story basically which you heard from when you grew up. I mean, this is what he did, right?
And what sticks in my mind is, to this day, and even back when he became successful, he has a very good eye for commercial property. He'd buy anything he could get his hands on, like he'd figure out a way to finance it and get it. And there's this fearlessness in his heart. And it's just, when he told me that story, how many of us would have given up long before then, would have given up at the point where you can't buy a truck and just wouldn't have bothered doing it.
Yeah.
So I find that very touching and very inspiring.
It indeed is. It is very inspiring. I mean, this is how the true entrepreneurs, true leaders, true businesses are set up. Basically, if you pick up any successful business venture in the world, they all started like this. I mean, basically hard work, and moreover, when you are an immigrant, you've got nothing much to clinch to, so you have to do what you can do yourself. So, and that's a place when the wonder happens, So you were lucky that you had such a father, I must say, and that could be the legion of inspiration for you to grow up. And perhaps that could be the reason why you have come up as a successful entrepreneur.
Darpan, honestly, I don't think I can touch my dad's ability. There's a part of me that has his courage, but there's another part of me that doesn't. And when I'm feeling like weak, or I'm feeling like, how we all look at ourselves and we self-criticize and self-examine and say, why didn't I do it this way? Or I want to do this, but something holds you back.
Right.
And Dad was always a risk taker. But what went with that risk taking is he never compromised on who he was, and he never complained. He always said to me, he said, instead of looking back at those times and saying, oh, woe was me, and everybody was mean or whatever, he said, I had the best experiences. And he said, people were kind to me. And I remember being a child when we drive to another town or something, and he'd point out the different farmhouses on the hills or whatever. And he'd say, these people were good to me. He says, I ate so much eggs and these people let me sleep in their barn. And most people would look, at sleeping in a barn in a foreign country, not being able to speak the language, as a negative thing, but he never did.
Never gave up.
Never saw it as a negative.
Right. And how old were you when you came to Calgary from Nova Scotia?
came to Calgary, I was just a teenager. So it was a hard time to move.
Right.
You know, that age.
You were in school at that time, yeah, most probably.
Yeah.
Teenage. And you were already having that influence, like you were watching your father doing his entrepreneurship, his business, his way of dealing with the people and the business.
You know what, Darpan? When he had the businesses in Nova Scotia, the last store he had, or one of the stores that he had before we moved, was a clothing store. It was a ladies and a menswear.
Okay.
And the salespeople that worked for the factories would come and they would bring, you know, the samples to him. And he had a strip mall that he built. And I don't know what a strip mall would be in the UK. It's like a shopping plaza with stores in it. And
supermarket.
There was different stores in it, like people rented in his strip mall. But he opened up a store in it. And I was like 11 years old, 12 years old. And I worked in that store as if I was an adult. I remember I didn't go after school and play and stuff. I would go and work in the store. And I liked to draw clothing. And if a lady came in and she needed something,
yeah,
I knew exactly where to look. So it's almost something that became a part of me that I was unconscious of, if that makes any sense. I just did it. I didn't want to go out and play games after school. I wanted to go to the store and work. Like I wanted to, you know, sit and deal. I was 12 and I lived in an adult world. If that makes any sense. And all these adult ideas and aspirations. And maybe that's where that came from. I never thought of it, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was within you at that stage already. I mean, when you were 12, 13. I think it's a genetic thing, could be when you saw your father doing, you know, all that, you know, the bold decisions and his bringing up of his own entrepreneurship and his own, you know, so that all you learned from him, I guess.
And you know what's funny, Darpan? I remember, it's funny, you're jogging my memory. You're making me think about things I haven't thought about in a long time. I remember I would go with him when he'd go to see the buyers, like to order stuff. And it was the ladies' wear. I was interested, of course, in the ladies' wear side of it, not the men's wear as much. Yeah. And I remember I'd go with them and I'd say, oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Right? As a child, like, oh, this is very fashionable and nice. But he wouldn't buy that stock for his store. Of course, he was smarter than me. He knew what his customers wanted in a rural Nova Scotia town. And what I was picking was hardly going to suit his customer. And I remember someone telling me at some point that they thought my mother did the buying for the store, but it was my father. He had an acute awareness of what his customers' needs were.
And your mother was a housewife?
My mother was a housewife. She did all Dad's, she was kind of like she did all his book work. She took care of all that end of the business.
So she had her hand into the business also. She was helping at the back end.
Yes. And I remember Dad always had, like, she always had help with the house stuff. So she, you know what I mean? So she had help with that. And she helped him on the back end with the business. Yes.
How many siblings were you, Z? How many brothers, sisters?
We're 5 girls and 1 boy.
5 girls, 1 boy. And you were the eldest.
Yeah.
And everybody has entered into entrepreneurship?
No, I never thought of it. My brother always worked with my father, but my one teacher, I'm the only one that pursued it as, if you want to call it a business. I'm the only one.
Yeah, well, you have a business. You are a business lady. You are an entrepreneur. You're 25 years. You're into this real. real estate business, residential. So
By accident, Darpan, and on my father's suggestion.
whatever, I mean, whatever you, but you have been successful into that for 25 years, aren't you? So and but interesting is that out of 6 kids, you are the only one who decided to follow that. So, I mean, this was something within you right from the childhood. When other your siblings, they didn't start their own venture or something.
No, now that you've really made me think about this, I'm the only one.
Yeah, so that is that's what's building you. That's what defines you, Z, in my opinion. Because you see, 25 years into one industry, clinging onto that as a woman, growing your kids, your family, and that to a Lebanese background, I can imagine that you must be having a hell lot of responsibilities on your head. Yeah.
That's so lovely of you to say, and I love the way you said.
No, I mean, I can imagine because I coming from the Indian background, I can imagine. I mean, a little bit the cultural thing do come up. That too, when you are, setting up your own thing as a woman, it's just credible. Yeah.
And it's so interesting that you mentioned that. And you'll get this because anyone that's a child of immigrant parents, my father, as long back as I can remember, when I use the religious, unfortunately, the word religion in our crazy world has negative connotations, but I mean this in the best of way. He's a very spiritual and religious man. And he never taught us something where he didn't walk the walk first. Like, he was strict. He had expectations of us in terms of morality, how we treated people, integrity, all of that stuff. Right. And I've always felt it. That's why when you said he must have had a hell of a time. I always felt that my life would have been a lot easier if he would have been more traditional. I would have never wanted it that way. But if he would have been more traditional, and I would have been a more traditional girl.
Yeah.
That makes any sense to you?
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I didn't stay home and help mom and want to cook and grow up and have children. And being a mother is one of the most rewarding thing in my life. Like, my kids are everything. Like, it's that core part of you that's very important to me.
How many kids you have?
2, a boy and a girl.
Boy and girl. They must be now having their own families, don't they?
Yes, I became a grandmother 2 times in
the
last years.
I remember you wrote. Yeah, congratulations for that. Congratulations.
But because I was so much like my father and so much a part of his world, growing up, I never, things about the house, taking care of the children, worrying about cooking, worried about, running a household. This sounds really terrible because it's a priority for me in the sense that that's important, that it's done properly as well.
Yeah.
But that was a struggle for me my whole life because I was more interested in business things. That's because growing up, I was always with my father.
I think it was in your genes. You got it from your father, and it was like your father's support to you. Usually, a girl is more close to father, and a boy is more close to mother. That's usually how the equation works. Most of the families I've seen, and I mean, fathers are usually more attached to their daughters.
And Darpan, in hindsight, and your questions are really good because they made me think about this, and I've thought about this before, but I haven't thought about it recently a lot. And really what shaped me is my dad was way ahead of his time in terms of the 1950s, 60s, 70s culture and girls and being
I can
from,
imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine that.
Dad never ever said to me, you can't do this in terms of work and stuff because you're a girl.
Yeah, man, and that is incredible and that is applaudable. I would say that was really good thing he gave to you, and thanks to that, you are what you are today. So yeah. So when did you get into the real estate industry? How did it start?
By accident. To be
Accident.
honestly, my husband and I were going to get married. I was in a field that certainly wasn't practical for work in Calgary. Everybody suggested teaching, and teaching is a wonderful job because good teachers bring up the next generation for all intents and purposes.
What did you finish in the college?
I
Oh,
have
you dropped off the college, I guess. Yeah?
University of Calgary. I got an undergraduate degree in religious studies / political science.
Okay.
And then I started to work on a master's. But then when my husband and I were going to get married, we decided, you know what? We should do something if we're going to make Calgary our base where I can get work. The problem is you have all this education, but you don't have any experience. You know what I mean? In the sense of a field where you can actually make a good living. So
Yeah.
this is where
Why did you take political studies? Why you wanted to be into politics or something?
No, I was thinking, to be honest with you, I was thinking of law school.
Okay.
But my son became a lawyer, so that's okay. I can live vicariously through him. One of my co-students that was in religious studies with me, he said to me, one day he looked at me and he says, lawyers, he says, maintain the system. He says, when you see a problem, you want to come in and just tear everything down and fix it.
So what was the reason you couldn't get into the law school, or what you?
I took the exam, and then, like I said, what I was taking wasn't very practical.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I want to work right now. And one of my professors, and it was the biggest compliment, he called me into his office because he wanted to talk to me about a paper I had written. And I was quite nervous because I thought it was going to be critical. So I was, your guard's up and you're afraid. And he really liked the paper I'd written. And he said to me, I think, because you're from the Middle East, your background's from the Middle East, but you're born here, you can communicate in the language effectively. I was flattered. He said, I think you'd be really good in a position with the UN. They have this program in Texas. That was very flattering.
So that was okay. That was a turning point.
But it wasn't practical for me at the time.
Right.
So I thought, go get a teaching degree. And I went in and I went to the Faculty of Education.
Okay.
I went for the first year. And then the second year I went to buy my books. And I couldn't do it, Darpan. I came home. My mother said, what are you doing home? And I said to her, I love books. And if I can't even buy the books, because I want to go to the other section, because that's what interests me, philosophy, politics, all of that stuff. I said to her, I can't do this. Yeah. So I literally walked. I took a job with, I think it was a coffee company in sales for 2 months. It was salaried. It's there's no way I can do this. So my father said to me, you really like people. Why don't you try, and you like sales, why don't you try real estate?
Yeah.
Then I went from there.
So it was his idea.
It was a suggestion. I didn't even know what a mortgage was.
Okay. And so what did you do the first thing when you took his idea? So did you go to any real estate company to work for or something?
This is so bad. I don't know how familiar you are with Remax, but Remax at the time, I knew the name. What a reason
I have worked for Remax for some time in my life. So I do understand, like, it's a franchise of the properties. It's American chain, isn't it?
And at the time,
Yeah.
what a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't realize it because I was too naive and green to know, but sometimes ignorance is bliss, because I didn't let fear enter the green matter or the matter in here. And I remember thinking, okay, I know nothing, I know less than nothing, if we're going to be polite about real estate.
Yeah.
I know the name Remax. And I walked into a franchise. I asked them to sponsor me because you need sponsorship. I didn't know that Remax, unlike other companies, like you go in and every month you have a big bill because you're your own business person.
Right.
It's not a company where that was a traditional model. At the time, Remax was extremely forward thinking.
Yeah.
You went, as you set up shop, so to speak, under Remax, and then you were responsible for all your business expenses, all of that.
Sure.
Right? So nobody went to Remax at the time unless they had a lot of experience with another company.
Right.
Well, because then they had a business, they had clients and all
Yeah.
of that. So when they went to Remax, they were already established and they could afford to go that route.
Yeah.
I took a shortcut, went straight to Remax. They sponsored me.
Yeah.
I worked with, the advantage of that, it was the best decision I ever made. I worked with really great, and still do, with really great professional agents.
How old were you that time?
In my 20s.
20s.
Yes.
And this is you start. So that was a starting point for you to get into. You started with them.
Yeah, and I'm still with them.
Oh, you're still with Remax till to date.
I have gotten many long service awards from Remax. I think I've been, you're so sweet. You kept saying 25 years, but actually I got a long service award. I don't know if you can see on my desk there, but anyway, I 35 years.
35 years.
35 years, yes.
35.
35.
Wow. So that's, sorry. I
No, that's fine.
took it from
I
from
prefer
the bio.
25, but I
Yeah.
prefer 25, but no.
So that makes you even
Older.
more, I have to respect you more for that. I mean, that's just incredible. 35 years of into the same industry. You must be having your own franchise now, don't you? I mean, like.
Do you know what, to be honest with you, Darpan, I like what I do. I like my interaction with my clients. I never had the desire to have a franchise and be on that end of it.
Okay.
I really enjoy my independence, and my work gives me that. And it allows me to focus on what I want to focus on, and that's my business. And
Right. I think that is like you are more close to the clients, one-to-one relationship.
Yes.
And that is, I think that is another good way of looking at it.
Yeah, I never had that desire to pursue it that way. Like I really enjoy my clients, and I feel like when I think of real estate, as you know, got into it kind of as an accident, I feel that you're put wherever you're put for a reason. And you learn your business, and your clients teach you about yourself and what you're, you know, we all think we have these values and we have these whatever.
True.
But how
No,
you
but I would like to add to that. The thing is that, I mean, you are basically, you've grown up, you have raised your children. They have their own families. They're all one son, you said, is a lawyer. Second is
a teacher and a mom, amazing mother.
Amazing mother, amazing teacher. So basically, they're all both settled. They have got their families. you could back out of this profession if it was, as you say, accidentally you were put into that by your father or whatever was the case that time. But you didn't do that. You kept on continuing 35 years. So that means that you have your heart inclined to that, your entrepreneurial spirit within you. It never declined. It never took you off this thing. And I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be a money thing which has kept you holding to it, that you wanted to earn some money, material side of it. So I think
There's
your heart
that.
is into.
I like a challenge, and I like setting goals for myself. And that's, and in entrepreneurship, you really, nobody dictates your ability except yourself. So if you succeed or fail, it's on your shoulders.
Sure.
And sometimes that's frightening, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And my colleague and I used to always say this, and this is terrible, but I feel there's some truth to it. I feel like there's an element similar to gambling in true entrepreneurship.
Right. That the thing, adrenaline comes in. You have to do that. If you don't do that, you don't get it. I fully understand that.
Right? Because there's but it's deeper than that, because it's not just about the material potential that you have to gain.
Right.
It's the risk reward. In a business where the turnaround is literally 2 years, people get into the business and they leave.
Accepted.
Statistically, real estate is a business where people leave. I think it's two to 3 years and they're out of it.
Right.
So we're either all crazy. The good agents I know we're either all crazy, or we really love what we do.
Yeah, I think you love what you do. I mean, otherwise, if only the money was the incentive for you, you would have left it and you would have got into something else, maybe. Right. But I think you love that. So you've clutched to that for 35 years, and which is incredible. I mean, it's not everybody can do that.
My kids.
What do you, sorry. Yeah.
Go
What were you
ahead.
saying? No, please.
No, it was
No,
just kind of an afterthought.
Yeah.
It's now that my kids are both married, because everybody got married and started to have children in the last 4 years. I feel like it's a new chance for me to focus on my business.
So you want to continue with it coming 5-10 years?
Either that or but I really would like to shift. I'd like to do it all, and I'd really like to do more with my writing as well.
With what? Sorry?
My writing, like it gives me that creative outlet that I feel.
Right. And do you see any growth for yourself in the coming years? I mean, in terms of as a real estate, with the remarks or whatever it is, what anything in the future you're looking at?
I do. I have some ideas that are kind of against mainstream. Again, it's that courage thing. This has been something that's has been in my mind for a very long time.
Right.
With housing and with interest rates.
Yeah, terrible.
But I feel like housing, food, shelter, medicine, education, and I think that's the 4 big ones.
Yeah.
Every person has a right to those at some level.
Right.
And I feel, and because of my industry, and I've seen situations where people have been in terrible situations, and the world, and I really do believe this, and this is a pretty big statement to make, and a lot of people might think this is, because when I talk to people, they all tell me it's impossible, but I don't believe it's impossible. I feel like housing I'm not talking about me buying 6 houses as investments. I'm talking your residential property. We should establish a foundation, or I should figure out a way to do it, where people who want to buy their principal residence can do so interest-free. And the money would go into that foundation and would come out and it would be like recycled. I think it's asinine that by the time someone pays for a home and it takes 25 years,
Yeah,
they've paid for their house how many times over?
absolutely, absolutely.
That money could go towards their children's education. It would be money that would go back into the economy. I think it's, again, ludicrous that for the first, like, and I'll show these charts to clients and I'll say, this is not fun, but just so you're aware,
True.
just how many years of your mortgage, nothing goes towards the principal. Is that not criminal in a lot of ways?
It is. It is. I'm myself dealing with mortgage right now, and I do understand what you're talking about, and I can appreciate that, because the more I'm getting into it, the more in fact, I might hit you by ping you with my request to get some mentorship from you in the future, because this is something, this market in UK market and mortgage market is going crazy. The rates of interest here had been like 1.2 to 3% always,
Yes.
and now they have gone over 6.5%. So
Yes.
people are just losing the mortgages. I mean, so this is a time when
Yes.
people, those who are want to. So I think it's something. It's a time to, if you want to get into this, I mean, your schooling will be the very, very, mentorship will be very on time to this with your experience. But that's another story. I get to you on that.
Japan, honestly, like I said, honestly, I would like to write. I think it's important that people think about life, but from a work perspective, this has been in my mind for a long time. And when I have one-on-one conversations with people, the first thing they say to me, nobody would lend money unless they were going to make money via interest.
True.
And what bothers me the most about that is we've bought in to that system so thoroughly,
Right.
but we can't look past a different, we need a paradigm shift in terms of our values and our purpose. And this is why I tie it to housing. When a family has a home, it's not just 4 walls and a roof. That home, that family home, is a place of security, stability, consistency for children. It contributes to the health of a society. When things get inaffordable, or people are constantly trying to pay off a home, and they're making all these payments and they're not paying anything, they're just paying the interest.
True.
And I've described it like this, which is a horror, maybe you'll disagree with me. I feel like it's a slow blow on the head. It's stretched out so long that people don't even realize we're making all these payments, and it's making, relatively speaking, hardly any difference.
True.
And these are families. And I think if someone wants to invest and they want to go get loans and stuff and they want to pay interest, that's fine. But I would love, and I have it all worked out in my brain. I would work with people, wonderful colleagues that worked with the banks, that worked in mortgages, that would qualify people, make sure they can afford the payments. But the idea would be that when you're making payments, you're paying off your house.
Exactly.
You're not creating a lucrative money system.
Yeah, I think the education is very important here. So once people are educated, you can speak the language of money, and if you're able to understand how it all works. And many a times people just do not know that part of it. They just do not understand. They know that there's a house to live, there's a mortgage, there's an installment, and you're paying that installment, that's all where it finishes, The installment paid is the month passed by, that's the mentality. So,
And I
yeah.
think it's criminal that they have to be at the mercy of these. For investment in business and entrepreneurship, if that's what you want to do, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about taking care of people in societies, and housing, like medicine and education. Shelter's a big stabilizing factor.
Well, that's a noble endeavor. I mean, let's keep the fingers, crossed for you, that you are able to grow and maybe do something, as you are planning something into teaching on this, maybe a fund you are saying you want to create or something.
I need to find a whole bunch of individuals, because I do believe, I do believe this. I believe, look, everybody tells you nobody would
It's a
do.
brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea. I think you must. I mean, this is something which is very, very creative, and I think that you should be able to get success in that. I mean, yeah, that's a good point to have the growth for. Tell me the what are your personal life 5 things, let's say, which you value the most in your life, throughout your life you have gone through till now? What you have learned, for your 5, the key values which you value the most as a person in your life, and which you keep it above everything for yourself. Could be 4, could be 6. I mean, I said 5 from just, I mean, usually 5 is a merry number, but you can have 4 or 6, maybe less, maybe more.
Arpan, that's a big question.
I mean, your ideologies, the things which you matter to you the most, this is important. This I would like to, this above everything in anything you do in life.
Even, I think it's important. As I age, I see this more and more. I think it's important that you have something that's your baby. I don't care I don't care what it is, but something that you love to do.
Okay.
And if I was going to look back and give someone good advice, time goes so quickly. And youth has a great arrogance about it. We think that we're going to be young and strong and we're invincible. And as you age, you realize, as you age and as you see your parents age, it's really humbling. Mm-hmm. And you vest yourself, you invest yourself in life.
So time is a commodity.
Time's our most valuable commodity.
Very valuable commodity.
Use it wisely. Do not waste it. And I don't care if you're 15 or if you're 25 or if you're 35. Use it wisely. Number 2, decide what's important for you.
Right.
Because if you decide what's important for you and you establish boundaries to fulfill those things, not at the expense, because I feel like we're living in an age where it's such an age of I and me that we often dismiss the impact of our behavior on others, and not that we should live for others. But relationships are a core factor in our own personal development.
True.
Does that make sense? So it's finding,
it does make sense.
It's finding that balance between what you want and what's going to nurture those long-term relationships. And thirdly, those relationships When you're young, you might think they're not important. But as you get older, you realize that the relationships you make with people, the way you touch their lives or not, becomes your legacy.
And by relationships, you mean the family or beyond the family?
This is a big statement to make, but I'm saying every relationship.
Every relationship.
Every relationship.
So
Because
that includes charities you could do, right? I mean, beyond your families, if you could go ahead, if you have the possibility, and if you have the material possibility, you might want to open a school, maybe, right?
this is the way I've come in life. Every day that we're given is a gift. And every day we have a choice. And, you know, people think they have to climb Mount Everest, or they have to, you know, make $1 gazillion, or they have to do whatever. Everybody has different goals. And that's fun, because that's the entrepreneurship thing, right? You achieve things. But everybody's definition of success is different.
True.
But if you strip everything away, every single day, every one of us, and this is one of the equalizers in life, we interact with people, all kinds of opportunities. I don't care if you're getting on a bus, taking a taxi, walking through a park.
Any interaction.
Any interaction. In every single interaction, you have a choice, and you have the capacity to make a difference in somebody else's life. And that might sound so utopic, or, you know, you want to just make the world a better place, but it's those small incremental things, and it doesn't cost anything. And over time, they become cumulative.
They become cumulative. I fully agree with that. Fully agree with that.
And that's why I was saying those
like Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Started with yourself. So basically what you're saying is start from yourself, your communications, your interactions on daily basis with the people, and that's powerful. What would be do you have anything else you matter, which the fourth point to that?
And I taught my kids this early on, and
Yeah.
again, it's got to be a balance. When something goes sideways, okay, sometimes, actually all the time, the first question you have to ask is, what did you do to bring this on yourself? If in good conscience, because you know the saying, to thine own self be true. If you know you've done nothing wrong, your intention was right, you did the right thing, you did the best thing to your knowledge, you acted in good conscience, and you acted morally, and you acted with integrity.
True.
If you can honestly answer that, then you can't take on other people's anger, their disappointment, their rage, their attack, because that's not about you.
Correct.
But the important thing is, and a lot of us forget, is we don't ask ourselves that. We want to find blame, because a lot of times people have done something to bring something on.
True.
So it's really important to be personally accountable, because you become your own schoolmaster. You become your own teacher. You're accountable to you. You know, Darpan, we worry about what people think, but other people don't know us.
True.
We know us.
Agree.
You know, if we can be honest with ourselves, we can change. But if we can't be first honest with ourselves, how can we expect to have healthy relationships with others and good interactions with, you know, and do the right thing and be able to make that difference in all those interactions in our lives?
Yeah, that's powerful. Anything else you would like to add? Anything else you value? apart from this?
That was a big question, Darpan, and it's a Saturday morning, so I don't know that I did a great job, but I hope I.
No, they are indeed very powerful. All the three. Well, I'll not bother you anymore on that. You said Saturday, so I mean,
No,
whatever.
I don't mind at
I
all,
mean,
but that's the big question.
there are certain values, people have their values. So I was just, just thinking about what values you have the top, priorities in life, which you always have above everything. So coming back to the entrepreneurship, if we would come back to your 35 years of as a businesswoman experience, uh, what would be your advice to the upcoming entrepreneurs who are hustling, struggling, younger generations? What would be your advice to them?
Be where you are. Because I never felt that I was. And I'll qualify that. If you choose to be a street sweeper, or if you choose to start a company, if you choose to be a coach or whatever you choose, make a commitment to excellence in that field. And don't be afraid of hard work. But you also have to understand that hard work will get you going, because you have to be dedicated and you have to be focused and you have to be productive.
Right.
But it's not hard work alone. It's not hard work alone.
What else?
It's the mindset, and it's planning for the success that you want and systematizing yourself. Like they always say in real estate, work on your business instead of in your business.
In other words, work hard. Do not work hard. Work hard, but work smart. That's what they say. You have to be smart also while you're hustling, working hard.
Yes. Work hard in the sense that, don't sit on the couch and say, well, I just want this to happen. You have to put in the effort.
Absolutely.
But put the effort in that's going to be productive and serve your end goal.
True.
Not effort that's really wasting your time and has nothing to do with what your end result is.
Right.
And if you're in a career and you dedicate yourself to it, choose excellence, because I feel like in some ways I focus on the relationships in my business, and that my clients really don't have to. One of the lawyers gave me a review and he said she worries about her clients almost to a fault, because he'll say to me sometimes, why are you worried about this? But I do. It's a big deal that things are properly taken care of for my clients and my customers, because I care about their well-being. I genuinely do. So in an industry that recognizes volume, does that serve me? So it goes back to what I spoke about earlier, and structuring whatever you do based on your values. And you have to, what I was saying about everybody defines success differently.
Yeah, that's powerful. See, that's powerful. Just a side note, I see that, and I know that you're a very creative person. Do you think empathy plays an important role while you are on the path to entrepreneurship? Empathy?
I think empathy is huge. And this is something that I've said many times. We all know the saying, all is fair in love and war. Kind of like in business too, you know what I mean? Like, you see it in movies all the time where there's someone, he's a wonderful family man. And I'm using a man as an example because the traditional figure that this applies to tends to be men more than women, generally speaking. All's Fair in Love and War, and you see the lead role in a movie, and he's this great family man. He's so loving with his family, but in the business world, he has he's ruthless.
True. The Wolf of New York. What was that film?
Or
The
whatever.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah. Everybody was giving all their money to, and he was having holidays. But right, but I do feel, and I feel, anybody that knows me knows this about me, I feel very passionately. Of course, your relationship with your client is different than a relationship with a 2-year-old grandchild. This is a given.
True.
But it's very important that we see other people as human beings before anything else. And
even when you're doing business.
Even when you're doing business, even more so when you're doing business. Even more so when you're doing business, because as a mother or as a grandmother or as a father, if you use a male figure.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a huge catch point. I'm going to put that as a note when I'm going to upload this episode on the internet. And I think this is a good catch point.
Because when you take care of your child, think of it this way. That's your child. You're responsible for their well-being. Okay.
Absolutely.
So this idea that, we have integrity, you have morals, you care, and you have empathy, and all of those good core human qualities don't take away from your ability to think or to be intelligent or to make intellectually, the things that you come to through reason. That doesn't impact that at all.
True.
Okay. But somewhere, and I think it's shifting, I really do feel it's shifting. We've said that that's, an admirable person, even if they're a wolf or unscrupulous in the business world, it doesn't work. Those people that are relying on a good doctor to give them good ethical advice based on illness, right? They need that doctor to see them as a human being before anything else. Maybe it's easier in medicine because we make that association. But in the business world, for example, you're a financial advisor, and you're helping someone with stocks, and maybe you're going to make a ton of money from it. You're advising this person about a financial matter that could affect them when they're most in need of security. And
you're right. I mean, usually this is what is absent in most of the cases. These guys, they don't have that. I mean,
that's vital.
Yeah, this is what is changing now, and this is something which I think will be a good advice for the upcoming generations to keep this in the part, because I mean, as I just said, the Wolf of Wall Street. What does the film show? I mean, that's just opposite of what we are talking of, right? Anything. I mean, this was happening real life. The stock exchanges and the traders, they were literally bluffing on the telephones, and they were, I would say, in the literal sense, ripping off money from the people. Yeah. So your ideology and this concept, if this is something which will be a great advice for, and I think this is changing now.
I think it's changed because we see a lot of talk about kindness and the importance of kindness. If I'm kind to someone, Darpan, and this is the fact that this is counterintuitive is problematic. Like, it says a lot about our societies.
Yeah.
If someone's kind to you,
yeah,
or they give you honest advice, they care about your well-being. But we live in a world where if you're kind to someone or you talk to them or whatever, sometimes they automatically think they want something from you. And it's like, no, this is something of value that will help you, and you need to know this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
People are so accustomed in the business world to being taken advantage of, is that sometimes they don't know how to react to someone that's like, they can't tell the difference between someone who's really putting everything on the table and giving them the
Yeah,
information.
I know. It's just the culture is like that. So, and there are a lot of, you would say that, bias. Society is biased in many senses. So that bias could be of, of race, religion, segments, sectors. So that trust factor, you know, it's a long way to go. It's
And
a long.
it's massive. It's massive, and it's. But that's why I say you need to be that same person right across the board.
Exactly.
And the old school way of thinking, I think, was, it all is fair in love and war, but it's not. Either a person who has integrity and empathy, or you're not.
True. Be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah.
And to me, if you're going to behave with such disregard, and because it's really disregard for someone who's chosen to work with you, who's put their trust in you, your priority number one should be serving them in a way that's going to benefit them.
True.
Not in what's in it for me, because that's a disgusting, sorry, terrible way to look at the world and to look at life, because it's a reflection of what you become.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's powerful, Z. Thank you for that. I'm going to put up that as a note because this is, I think, this is we all need it in the future as we move forward. Z, I have, so I'm starting a new thing. I mean, with our talk with you, I'm introducing a new thing in the School of Noble Thoughts show. And what would be one question which you would like to put across for the next guest I'm going to invite on the podcast, knowingly that you do not know who is it going to be and from which industry? What would be one question you would like to put across to him in the future, which you would like him to answer?
Okay, this is a question that I've thought of, that I'm kind of semi-obsessed with as of late. And I think it's important for every human being, and that's a big statement, but I feel this in my heart of hearts. We worry about work, we worry about our families, we worry about all these things that are good things to worry about. But we don't, I'm trying to formulate, I'm going to explain this, and then you can formulate it into a question. But we don't worry about, we're all born alone. And this is not to end it in a morbid way. We're all born alone. And we all pass away. And we're alone.
Right.
And between points A and B, there's a lot of difference. Maybe I struggle to put food on the table and somebody else can go to Paris for lunch and, Japan for dinner or whatever. Okay. But at the very end, we become equal again. God forbid the two people are ill. Okay. Like, no, neither one of them can maybe get better health care, but at the end of the day, neither one of them can barter with the Creator for more time.
True.
I think a question and you can figure out how to formulate into the question, because I think this is a very important thing. At a time in human history where we're so advanced technologically, but our humanity seems to be waning in some ways. We still have all this polarization. It's almost like right is right and wrong is wrong. And some voices are totally subdued and others we're forced to listen to. In a terrible age of parallels that I don't think serve our humanity at all. I don't think they address our purpose. So in between A and B, like birth and death, we need to think about our purpose.
Yeah. So I think, I think we'll have to work it out. Okay, I'll think about that. based on what you have said and create a question.
That's a lot. I'm sorry, that's not a question, but
No, but yeah, I get the point. No problem. So I think that would be, what is your big purpose in life? I mean, that could be the one. We could make it like that. So
or there's two things, right? There's things that serve us while we're alive in the temporary world.
right.
If you believe that there's another life or an afterlife or whatever your belief system is, what are you doing here? And I feel like this goes back to my view about all is not fair in love and war.
Right.
You have to have balance, like you have to have consistency. Because I think we have to worry about if what we do here is the right thing, it's the one thing we're going to take with us, is what I believe.
Yeah.
Whereas all the stuff we acquire, none of us are, regardless if you believe there's an afterlife or not, none of that stuff goes with you. So you have to decide, because once you die, it's too late. That sounds horrible. It's too late. You can't go back and fix it.
True. I'll figure it out. We'll try to make a question out of it, and for the next guest. Thank you. I will just have to work on it. We'll do that.
And if I think
No worry.
I'll send it to you.
Sorry.
Be concise, I will send you the question. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, I will work it out. One last question before we wrap up this talk. Today is your last day in the world. What would be your parting advice to the world? If it would have been the last day, what would be your parting advice to the world before you leave the world?
Don't wait till it's too late.
Thank you. Powerful. Don't wait till it's too late. Zehirr, thank you very much for your time. And it has been my immense honor and pleasure that you found the time for me. And I look forward to talk to you, Zehirr. You have a good day.
You've been amazing in your patience and everything. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, I'll ping you regarding the real estate. I might have some questions regards to that, so I'll write to you on that. But that's separate. You have a lovely day and have a good weekend, Zehirr. Thank you very much.
You as well.
Yeah, take care. Bye.